So the new edition of Supervising Doctoral Studies will be a comprehensive, flexible and interactive programme of training in the core principles and practices of research supervision across the doctoral life cycle for both new and more experienced supervisors in all disciplines. And the main objective of the programme is to provide innovative professional training for supervisors to really equip them to support candidates' development into independent researchers. We all know from kind of the PRES survey and literature and anecdotal experience that effective supervision is really understood to be one of the most important influences on the doctoral researcher's experience and the quality of their supervision and successful and timely completion. So as I said, we really recognise supervision as a distinct academic practice requiring supervisors to develop a specific set of skills, knowledge and understanding. We're developing the programme with some of the leading experts in the field of doctoral supervision and supervisor development, and I'm going to introduce you to our brand new programme advisory board shortly. But first, so who is the programme aimed for? So it will be suitable for both new and more experienced doctoral supervisors. But it's also going to be relevant for aspiring doctoral supervisors as well. And it is increasingly common for universities to require some form of initial training in order for a member of academic staff to be eligible to supervise. So it'd be great if I could ask you to put your thinking caps on again with a little quiz question to see if you can guess how common this currently is. And if your institution requires supervisors to take initial training, are you in the majority or the minority? So the question's on screen now. According to Stan Taylor's 2018 UKCG report on supervision eligibility, what percentage of UK institutions require academic staff to undertake mandatory initial professional development in order to be eligible to supervise? And there's the poll. So if you could just take maybe 5 to 10 seconds to cast your vote now. Oh, okay, that's very interesting. So we have a tie between those of you who think that there's 87% of institutions requiring initial training and 52% requiring initial training, and there's 38% of you each that think that. The answer is actually 87% of UK institutions require academic staff to take mandatory initial development. So that really is quite a significant number of institutions that really feel that it's essential that research supervisors have that training in order to be eligible to even supervise. So it's within this context that kind of scalable online training programs such as ours become really important as part of a university's provision for supervisor development. Okay, next slide, please, John. Thank you. So just to tell you a little bit about our first edition, so it was published in 2014 under the guidance of our lead advisor, Dr. Douglas Halliday at the University of Durham. It was largely very well received and is still very well used by subscribing institutions. And a survey was made available to those taking the course. And so out of 445 respondents, 85% reported a positive or very positive overall impression of the programme, and 83% reported that the programme was effective or very effective in improving their understanding of the supervisory process. As part of our research for the second edition, we sought a lot more detailed feedback on the first edition from a range of subscribing and non-subscribing institutions. And some of the key strengths that were identified include the comprehensive topic coverage in terms of breadth and depth, the use of videos and scenarios, the interactive nature of the training, its engaging and reflective approach, and the scholarly input and strength of the authoring team. And so we're really planning on retaining and building upon those strengths in the second edition. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. So the feedback also reveals that now really is the right time for some significant updates to the content, the structure and the pedagogy of the programme. So this is primarily in response to some of the recent key developments in doctoral studies and supervision that have had quite a significant impact on the supervisor's role. And so some examples include the move towards structured training programmes, the increasing diversity of the doctoral student population, a growing focus on developing respectful supervisory relationships, and increasing recognition of the challenges relating to mental health and well-being that can be faced by doctoral candidates. So second edition is quite necessary and timely in order to equip supervisors to deal with these emerging challenges in this field of practice. And while we're in this period of change, offering kind of consistent institution-wide training on supervisors' responsibilities and where to seek further support is increasingly important. It is also the case that online training and learning design have really moved on in the last 5 years. And so it's really important that we keep pace with the most up-to-date developments in online learning and build on the latest pedagogical research, both in terms of supervisor development, but also e-learning, so we can tailor the learning really effectively to this particular audience. So based on some of the review feedback we received, the proposed changes will focus on these broad areas given in this table that you can see. So all the content will be revisited to show that it's up to date and relevant. And new or expanding content will be developed on a number of topics relating to the key developments in doctoral studies. So that includes mental health and well-being, respectful supervisory relationships, team supervision, distance supervision, employability, and several others. In terms of structure, the programme will be structured so that it very broadly reflects the doctoral journey with clearer subdivisions for easier navigation. A modular approach will be adopted to ensure that the course is more manageable and accessible, and supervisors will be able to create their own pathways through the course material and locate relevant topics at point of need. The content is going to be more concise and streamlined in comparison to the first edition. And so there'll be 10 self-contained modules, which will take no more than 30 minutes each to complete. It's 5 hours in total. Based on the feedback and our quite rigorous research into supervisor development pedagogy, we've fully redesigned the pedagogical framework that will scaffold the learning. And so that's to ensure that it is effective and appropriate for this quite advanced audience's high level of experience and highly developed learning skills. So in practice, this means that the balance between flat text and activities will be improved. And the majority of the core content will be led by these activities, and they'll be challenging, interactive, and really designed to develop knowledge. And finally, on the screen, in terms of the appearance, the design is going to be reworked in line with developments in and expectations of e-learning programs, which will complement and enhance our new approach to learning design, and it'll capitalise on the new FGM platform's capabilities. So the screens are going to appear cleaner, more modern, less cluttered, and some of the character-based scenarios that are illustrated will be refreshed to reflect the current doctoral student population. So rather than having just one lead advisor as we had with the first edition, we decided to put together an advisory board, and we are absolutely delighted to be working again with Dr. Douglas Halliday and Dr. Stan Taylor, both of whom are at Durham University, and Dr. Margaret Kiley, who's at the Australian National University. So all three are leading figures in the fields of supervisor and researcher development, and they all collaborated with us on the first edition as well. So they're already bringing their significant expertise to the programme development, and they're going to be providing overarching guidance on the vision for the programme, as well as feedback on content drafts at every stage. And we also just about have a full authoring team assembled, and they're getting to work now really hard on their learning outcomes and content plans, ready for the development group members' review and input at the workshop in December that we'll tell you a little bit more about later. So this is just a nice little quote from Stan Taylor, who recognises that doctoral supervision is becoming ever more challenging and complex, and the new programme really is needed to support supervisors to enhance the quality of their doctoral candidates' learning experiences and successful completion of the PhD. So here's our list of learning outcomes for the programme. Just to run through these, the programme will enable the participants to explain the nature and purpose of doctoral education, to gain awareness of the wider context of the doctorate and key developments in doctoral studies, to critically reflect on best supervisory practice, to identify and apply the skills required to engage and support research students to grow into independent researchers, to prepare for handling academic and non-academic issues in supervision and know where to seek further support, and to approach supervision of a diverse range of candidates with diverse needs and circumstances with confidence. So on screen now is an outline of the programme and list of all the modules that it will contain. So as I mentioned, it very loosely reflects the doctoral life cycle from an introduction to doctoral context and attracting applicants, all the way through to completion and examination and further supervised development, continuing professional development, I guess. However, we didn't want to try to map the programme too closely to a so-called doctoral journey, as the diversity of different doctoral pathways makes that extremely difficult and actually not especially useful. So we also wanted to ensure that the content is quite streamlined, so bringing all the material on one topic together to improve navigation through the programme. So for example, something like managing expectations is something that occurs throughout the doctoral process, right from the beginning right till the end. But all of the relevant material on managing expectations will be located in its relevant module, so module 4 in this case. So here's some of the key features of the programme. So it will contain scenarios and examples, videos and animations, some interactive polls like the ones we've been doing in this webinar with you, application screens and end of module quizzes to test the new skills that the supervisors will be learning. And we'll also be providing tutor-led and peer-to-peer activities, which will help provide opportunities for blended learning. And it would be good to have a look at some of these examples in a little bit more detail. So I'd like to briefly show you a few screenshots from one of our recent programs, which is aimed also at university staff, and that published very recently this summer. And so that was called University Teaching Core Skills. So this will give you a chance to see the look and feel of our newer programs and also see some of those key features that I've just mentioned that will be also incorporated into Supervising Doctoral Studies. So as you can see here, each module opens with a welcome screen, which gives instructions on how to use the module. It sets out the learning outcomes so participants know in advance what they will be aiming to achieve, and introduces the expert panel of authors and reviewers that have contributed to the module. And on the left there, you can see that a drop-down sidebar will give links to all of the screens within the module, and that'll help navigation as well. I should also just mention now as well that Supervising Doctoral Studies will have a brand new design. So while it will follow this format in general, things like the colour scheme, the fonts, the illustrations won't look exactly like this. So scenario-based learning is going to feature very heavily in this programme, again in response to some of the feedback that we received on the first edition. This is something that supervisors are really looking for. So these realistic scenarios and activities will really ground the content in real life and provide advice for difficult situations. So it will really offer the participant a safe space to practice their knowledge and skills and prepare them for their real supervision. So as well as these scenarios featuring throughout the modules, I mentioned that we will be including application screens as well. And this will be a dedicated screen at the end of each module, which is based entirely around a scenario or a case study with a branching action maze. So it'll be kind of a choose your own adventure sort of approach. And that will test the concepts learned in the module. We're going to be incorporating video into every module, largely in the style of talking head interviews. And for Supervising Doctoral Studies, we'll film some brand new interviews, both with supervisors reflecting on their own experiences and providing tips for best practice, and with PhD candidates for that really valuable opportunity to hear the student voice. We'll be looking to produce these videos with the universities that do join our development group. So that's a really nice opportunity to showcase some of the good practice that happens at your institution. So throughout the modules, practical guidance will be really balanced with opportunities for the participant to reflect on their own needs and methods and best practice more generally. So you can see on the left here that there's a clickable spider diagram activity listing some of the useful policies that academics should be aware of. On the right is more of a reflective activity, which asks the user to drag and drop statements into a kind of skills evaluation grid according to how confident they feel with each item. And some of the ways in which we incorporate practical advice is through end-of-module resource banks and references lists. And we can also include what we call pods throughout the course, which universities can populate with their own useful links to their own policies and guidance. So finally, just to summarise the benefits of the programme for institutions. So as I mentioned, the scenario-based training will really allow supervisors to apply the learning in realistic situations to approach their academic and non-academic issues in their supervision with confidence. The content will be relevant across disciplines, both in its coverage of the general principles of supervision that apply within all subject areas and through discipline-specific case studies, examples and scenarios that users can click to select the discipline that is most relevant for them. So with this programme, institutions will be able to provide a flexible learning resource that can be used independently as a standalone supervisor development programme or as part of a blended learning approach alongside existing workshop initiatives. It'll enable institutions to efficiently and cost-effectively scale up their supervisor development provision, which will help provide consistent training, which can reach a greater number of staff members, and to ensure the best possible environment for doctoral candidates.